Thank you very much for coming to the ENA annual general meeting this morning. I should say that we, the management board, that's Fred, Milena, Sophie and Mariana and me, apart from David, we're here in Edinburgh, gratefully hosted by the National Library of Scotland, so thank you to Fred for that. Our colleagues from Europeana are in The Hague, so Tamara, Susanna, Harry and others are sitting in The Hague, and you're all out there with us. So we're looking forward to this meeting very much. So we're going to kick off now with a session, an introductory session from myself and Harry and Kirsten from the Aggregators Forum. Next slide. Okay. So a bit of housekeeping first. Please keep your program handy because everything that you need about the sequence of events is there. To maximize your participation, please check your username. Please use your first and last name. Please mute your microphone when you aren't speaking, as that's quite important. If possible, use your camera when you're speaking. If you need to leave for a second, please turn your camera off. We want to be interactive today. I want to get input from as many people as possible. We'd like you to use, because we don't have much time, there won't be much time for open discussion, so we need to use the chat function. So please put any questions or comments you have into the chat function on Zoom. We will monitor that constantly and pick it up from at the right point in the proceedings. Okay, so please respect the code of conduct, which is what you can see the link to there. If you haven't seen that, code of conduct, and I'll say a bit more about that with the next slide, please. Okay, so our guidelines for inclusive conversation and community behaviour are to be inclusive and to collaborate during all aspects of the event. When in communication with others, to be thoughtful and considerate in our conversations. We ask everyone to listen and read with the same energy and focus with which they want to be heard, to embrace a learning mindset, respect all points of view and hold space for multiple perspectives, and own up to any errors we make, apologise and make amends. We maintain that any person has the right to speak up and identify when a boundary has been crossed. So this is just to quickly summarise the code of conduct approach to these meetings. If you want to signal that a boundary has been crossed or you have any questions about these guidelines I've just briefly gone through, please don't hesitate to contact me or any of us by email or in the chat or by any other means that you have, and we'll make sure that we take appropriate action. The next one, please. So that's a bit of housekeeping. We have a 2-hour meeting today. We have to move along quite quickly. It's the first time that we've had this meeting, the AGM, as a separate event. And previously, it's been either combined with the conference or with the members' council. So this is a bit of an experiment, but we would like very much to move through these proceedings quite swiftly. We have now just over 100 participants, I think. So the agenda for this meeting is, first of all, we'd like to go through and present to you this year's achievements and strategic priorities for the next year, in the light, in particular, of the European data space for cultural heritage, which is the agenda which we're now facing up to, the new agenda we're all now facing up to. And in this context, we will hear from Harry in terms of what the Europeana Foundation is doing, and also briefly from the Aggregators Forum, which is a symbol of the fact that the 3 pillars of the Europeana initiative are now intending very strongly to work in cooperation together more strongly than in the past. The second thing then is that we will move to the communities, the 7 communities. We now have a 7th community, a climate action community, to add to the previous 6. And we will hear about from those communities about their highlights and achievements and their plans towards implementation of the data space. So again, this is about cooperation in terms of the data space. And then at the end, we will do the usual thing of approving. We're presenting to you for voting for approval the various documents, formal documents that we produced, including the annual report, the activity plan, and the budget. So as I say, interaction is warmly invited, but we're going to have to handle this by please putting questions or comments into chat, which we will monitor. Next slide, please.
And maybe I can quickly comment for 100 attendants, and I think most of them also have shared their greetings and their wishes to our network when coming in. So very much appreciated, and it's lovely to see such a colorful, exquisite company here this morning.
It is. Okay, so now without further ado, over to Harry to talk about, I think, the data space in particular. Harry.
Yep, thank you, Rob, and hi everyone. Yeah, I was also looking at that chat, Sophie. People from Morocco, Jerusalem, and the rest of Europe seems to be pretty cloudy, from Swansea to Latvia. And I found out that you've got a network member in Edinburgh, Norman Roger. So maybe you want to catch up with him. So I just wanted to say a few things at the start of this, where we stand with the Europeana initiative. So in September, we concluded the DSI contract. That was a 4-year contract to build a digital service infrastructure. There is a report on that I'm assuming has been sent to the network members in one of the newsletters, and if not, you should get it soon. I think it gives you a nice impression of what has happened, what we've done together in the past 4 years, which is quite an accomplishment. It ranges from more high quality data and improving that to all the work that this network has been doing in the form of the many task forces and advancements on frameworks and the likes. And I wanted to share that with you, that the Commission and also the Supervisory Board of the Foundation was extremely pleased with the work also from the network, and acknowledges how important the Network Association is to all our endeavors. So from September onwards, the 1st of September, we're now in a new regime, as they call it. Europeana is now running with a consortium that I'll get to in a minute, what is called a data space. So the picture you see in front of you with all these clouds are not representing the fogginess in Europe, but they are representing 14 data spaces that are part of a big new construct that the European Commission has envisaged. There's a lot to be said about data spaces, and I think many people have questions. What is different from the data space, between the data space and the service infrastructure? We haven't figured all of that out, but I think there's a lot of extra opportunities in the data space to widen the ecosystem of partners that contribute to what we're after. Open cultural heritage shared widely across Europe. And the data space construct provides us with more opportunities than we had before. The idea is also that we'll be interoperable with other data spaces, and that there will be a shared technical infrastructure, cloud to edge, for those of you who are a bit more technical, that will support us in making this a success. So the main point I'd like you to take away from this is that data spaces are really designed to support ecosystems, and that's really very much what we are about, the network, the foundation, and the aggregators forum. So if we could have the next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the consortium that will be running that data space with. There will be many familiar faces for you. Many of the old consortium partners are still with us, but we've also added a few new ones. We're very pleased to add Time Machine Organization, Datatron, and also Inception, which is a 3D expert, and Capgemini, who plays an important role in underpinning data space infrastructure. So those organizations will complement the old consortium to deliver a couple of new things that we haven't done so much before. So those are, for example, how do we get more 3D material in Europeana? and in the data space. How do we develop unique identifiers that make it traceable, our data across the data space universe? There are three main innovation actions that I think the network will play a critical role in. The first one is we'll need to review the data governance that governs all the data in the data space. And I think that'll be a big exercise for all of us to think that through. And most importantly, we have a task to review the models of cooperation, as we call it, between the partners in the Europeana initiative, but also more widely, the ecosystem of partners in the data spaces. How do we work together? How do we set up task forces and working groups that are leading to a joint up approach and really innovate how we work in the sector? So those are the things that are on my horizon and hopefully also on yours in the coming period. And I'm extremely pleased to be working with such a great network of people in the coming period. And as Rob already said, we'll do that in very close cooperation between the Foundation, the Network Association, and the Aggregators Forum. That's what I wanted to share with you. And I think I can hand over now to you, Kirsten, for an update on the aggregators, right?
Yes, thank you, Harry. Yeah, thanks to Rob and Sophie and the management board to inviting the Aggregators Forum at the ENA AGM. I think it's the first time that we have this kind of setup. Yeah, I was not very sure how familiar ENA members are with aggregation, aggregators, and the forum. That's why I would like to say a few words about what we are doing. So we are for the accredited aggregators, and those aggregators provide most of the 50+ million objects that are available on Europeana via their data partners, the cultural heritage institutions across Europe. So we have both national and regional aggregators, as well as domain and thematic aggregators. So national, so the scope is defined by country or region. So the museums, archives, libraries from one country are providing via the national aggregator to Europeana. And for the domain and thematic aggregators, the scope is defined by the cultural sector, such as film and audiovisual, museums, or by topic, for example, fashion. Different to ENA, the Aggregators Forum is not a legal body, so we don't have statutes, but we have some sort of light organizational structure as well. So we meet twice a year, both either hybrid or in presence. We have built since 2018 a steering group. So they have, maybe you can have can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, we have a steering group, which is elected for 2 years. Three of them, one of them, which is Henning, is permanently represented in the steering group. And what we are doing as aggregators is, of course, that's the core business. We work with the cultural heritage institutions to improve data quality and the aggregation workflows. So we are some sort of help desk or an expert hub in data mapping. So we help partners to map their data to the EDM model to ensure interoperability. We support the cultural heritage institutions in capacity building for digital transformation. And in that respect, we already work very closely with the ENA communities. For example, the tech community, but also the copyright community. We have joint task forces and working groups on IIIF, linked data, right statements. Currently, as regards copyright, the new provision for works out of commerce. So there is also a kind of very close cooperation with the community, ENA communities. We also do own working groups. For example, we have an aggregators working group on diversity and inclusion. And the goal of this working group is really to increase diversity and inclusion in data and collections. So we have come up with some recommendations on this topic, but there's also a joint task force on diversity and inclusion. And of course, as Harry already mentioned, as Rob already mentioned, we are cooperating with INA and the foundation to implement the data space for cultural heritage, because aggregators play a very crucial role in that. According to the requirements from the Commission, this data space needs to provide a lot more 3D objects, a lot more content. We have to increase our content delivery by 10%. So that's in particular for the national aggregators an objective to achieve. We also raise awareness for the work of aggregators among stakeholders. We see ourselves also as a body to advocate for political action for cultural heritage. So we are represented in the Commission's working groups on Europeana and cultural heritage. We are represented in presidency events and other conferences and events. We also collaborate with aggregators collaborate in European funded projects, in particular to develop tools for example, automatic translation, automatic enrichment. So this kind of work. Yeah, that's a brief overview of what we are doing in the Aggregators Forum. And I want to mention that Susanna is a very important person because she is the liaison person with INA. So we try to streamline our activities, and I think we will do that more in view of the data space. And I think that's it. I hope I didn't forget something, but we have also a page on Europeana Pro, so you can see what we're doing also there. Thank you.
Because we have a question which actually has just disappeared, but the question was for Harry.
It's in the answered.
Oh, it's answered, okay.
Yeah, if you go, yeah.
Okay. So the question was, what role does Capgemini play? I don't know whether you want to say anything about that, Harry, or whether it's all dealt with in the answer.
Okay, but Harry answered that question already?
Did he? Okay, good.
Okay.
And we move on. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next section is part of this sequence of the three pillars saying what we've done, but of course, since this is our meeting, as it were, this will be slightly longer for Ina, and Sophie and I will share this. So could I have the next slide, please? So just running back then through 2022 so far, we're not at the end of it yet. Our strategic priorities were established within a strategic plan earlier in the year. This is a relatively new thing for Ina to have a strategic plan. We had those 7 things that you can see there, which are around strongly related to the direction of travel, if you like, which is to support capacity building, harness the potential of individual INA members more than we do now. This is very important. Diversity and inclusion, which is an ongoing theme throughout the initiative. More collaboration between the 3 pillars and more widely. More transparency, accountability, and democracy. To look at funding and payments and to see what we can do to improve those aspects of what we do. And as Harry said, to talk about the mechanisms that we deliver through, like task forces and working groups and so on. So those were our starting point, our strategic priorities for 2022, upon which we have built an input. We had a very productive process, I think, instigated by the foundation between the 3 pillars, to input to the preparation of the data space bid, the bid for the tender, the proposal. And once that has been succeeded.
Then turn on your camera.
Forgive me.
People want to see their chair.
Absolutely. I hope that's nice for you now. Okay, so yeah, as I said, we had a 2-3 months process of input to the contract preparation, and then once the thing looked like it was going to be awarded, and it was awarded, to the implementation plan. And we will both say a bit more about that implementation plan, how we see that going next. We also have, as you will hear later on today from Elena, a new expression of the budget, which I think is more reflective of both the support that INA gets from the initiative and what it costs to do so. So this is interesting and useful, I think, and will be a new way of presenting our budget. The follow-up now to this preparation work and thinking about implementation is an initiative-wide capacity building working group, which is starting about now, and in which ENA will nominate members and participate to develop the implementation around capacity building, because it really, for ENA, the main area of interest is, I think it's work package 3, isn't it, in the contract, is around capacity building. That's where our main contribution comes in various ways. So that working group will be important, and we will certainly want to make a strong input to that. So we have something just over 3,750 members right now, which is, there's a growth pattern going on. What we don't know is very much about who the members are, what they do, what their interests are, what their background is, what their expertise is, and we need a better breakdown of that to know how we can help energize and mobilize, engage people in the way in which they're interested. So one of our tasks now, an ongoing task, talked about for quite a while, but now it needs to happen, not least because the European Commission has asked us to say a bit more about the breakdown of the membership. We'll be doing this through the membership working group, which meets in 10 days' time, I think, from now to the next time. We need now to come up with ways and means of mining the membership, understanding who we are a bit better than we do now, so we can do more useful things with everybody. So that'll be an ongoing task. That is an ongoing task, and that's a major thing for us to do, I think. Beyond that, I think the new contract also will enable us to have eventually better mechanisms for communication with the membership. There's going to be a new platform for that yet to be designed or devised, but that comes within the next 2 years, the first 2 years of the contract. And so we'll be able to improve, hopefully, our communication with network members, and for that to be a two-way thing so that you can communicate from your side too. So I think that's a very quick summary of what we've done in 2022 so far. Can I have the next slide, please? So direction of travel, where are we going then now? So we, in a way which Sophie will describe in a moment, through a process, have come up with 4 headlines, if you like, for what we want to do now in connection with the implementation of the data space contract. One is to promote close cooperation throughout the data space, and that's not just between the pillars within the initiative, but also with the entire membership and indeed the wider sector to get people involved in the data space, and to, quite honestly, to begin with, to enable people to understand what the data space is actually going to be, because I don't think any of us yet have a very complete picture of that. We would like to engage, as we've wanted to for a while now, younger and more diverse participation in the network, and we want to build sectoral capacity to support the reuse of high quality data. So that means that this capacity building, this, if you like, shorthand training work, probably needs to be more focused now on what the data space requires and how people can engage with the data space. And so that will be the direction for that. And then fourthly, we want to help build a climate-proof data space. You'll hear later on from Susan Hassan, who chairs the new climate action community. And Susan has very strong views on what we all need to do, but we're now approaching tipping points on climate, and we need to be involved with that too. So that's the fourth and very important direction of travel, if you like. We have what I think, at least, is a major initiative in the pipeline, which we've posed as part of our, I think we've put in about 15 concrete-ish proposals for implementation as part of this direction of travel, which Sophie will go through in more depth. I think that one of the most important ideas that we have is to do with engaging people more on the network, offering engagement more if you would like to be engaged. And that is by approaching this more at national level. So we have in mind to pilot, to test out some country groups where people would like to be part of a country group which engages in advocacy and action in support of the data space. Quite how this will work, we need to try out, and it needs to be a co-design process, not just, I think, ideas from this end, but also in each country, what do you think is important, what's going to work in each country. So this is a work in progress, and it's a relatively new work, but this could be a major initiative, I think, if we can get if people are interested in working at national level to promote the data space and thereby Europeana, this will be a big plus if we can get this moving, I think. So that's a goal we have. This will then also increase involvement of EDA members, which is a general objective, and create a kind of ambassadors and professionals in each country. And I should say that the intention here is not to, since the aggregators already do some of this work in some countries, it's not to, certainly not to compete with that, it's to complement and cooperate with the people working for national aggregators in some form of rather more formidable force, hopefully, than we do right now. That's a good idea. Next, please. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Sophie now to build a little bit on these headlines and to go to slightly more depth. Sophie, over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Hi, everyone. What I want to do now is, you heard just from this crazy roller coaster ride that we had throughout 2022. Remember that when the year started, the data space was still far away, really in another galaxy. And even if we now don't really know how it's going to function or what it will look like, back then, really, it was a utopia with unicorns and rainbows. So we're now at the end of the year and we're very close to having an implementation plan that comes after we won with the initiative this tender for operating the data space. And now it's time to move to action. And the action will really start from day one in 2023. And what I want to do is to take you a bit more in detail through the journey that we traveled in between that starting point of 22 and where we hope to be at in 2023. This is important because we want to explain to you, share with you, and make transparent to you why we decided to put our eggs in specific baskets, so to speak. So on this first slide, I explain how we got, in fact, to our very specific focal points proposed for the implementation plan after the tender was granted. We were asked by the Commission to stipulate in a new document, in a new plan, how we are actually going to realize all these commitments that we made, all these proposals that they liked and appreciated. And this is, of course, where we as ENA also try to not only make our priorities heard, but also make sure that, we have the capacity, we have the space, we have the budget, we have the people, we have all the amenities to make that work. So where did we start? Well, you heard Rob already mention that we revised the strategic priorities that were formulated, I think, 1 year or 2 years ago for the very first time. We decided that as we were a new management board, we needed to do our due diligence and revisit them. So we worked on them, we kind of updated them, we added, we tweaked, but let's say we did not turn the world on its head here. We also continuated to a large extent the good things that were already happening in the network. Then, of course, this whole tender procedure erupted, if I can put it like that. I think many of you were somehow involved in the consultation sessions and the workshops that we had together with the foundation running up to actually submitting the tender. And what that meant for us as ENA is that out of all the conversations, all the discussions, we kind of molded out of the priorities and the tender ideas, 9 broader ideas. I say broader, but also concrete ideas for our role to play in this new data space environment. Then for the Europeana 22 conference arrived right after holidays in September. We went back to the drawing table because we wanted to somehow make more a condensed or a compact package of implementation priorities. So really looking at what is our capacity, where is our top 3, our top 4, top 5 of absolute musts that we wanted to see reflected in the implementation plan, well, we took them to the Europeana 22 conference. We were invited in one of the glorious meeting rooms, the revamped meeting rooms at the Hague Library, and we had an absolutely energizing conversation cross-initiative. Out of that, in the end, I'm almost there, we distilled 3 action domains and 3 discussion topics, and I will revisit those in the activity plan. You've also received this document, so we hope that you've been able to give them a good look over. Now, as I already said, why did we think this whole process has been of a great importance? Of course, because tender or no tender, data space or no data space, we are a network that is a substantial body in the whole Europeana ecosystem. It is important that representing thousands and thousands of members, we express our vision. It's not enough to be there. We also need to make ourselves and our members be heard. We also really believe that it's not a bad or an icky thing to be ambitious. To the contrary, we want to be actively involved. We want to make changes aligned with some agreements that we have across the management board and across the membership. Then why it's also important to do these kind of thought exercises and put them to plans is that, of course, we have our realities to deal with, a certain number of staff, a certain amount of budget, and the unicorns and the rainbows are great, but in the end, we have to make it work. And then finally, there was this need, this quite urgent need, to come up with a good activity plan for 2023, the year in which the data space will become a virtual reality, if you like. The big 4 priorities that you will see reflected in the activity plan a bit later in this session, Rob already touched upon them, so I don't need a lot of time to go over them once again. The first one, the close cooperation throughout the data space. I hope that it came across that with the opening this morning, having the 3 pillars present and vocal and during the introductory part to this AGM, we really wanted to show you that, okay, collaboration has always been there. What we would love is to increasingly intensify that collaboration. So we are constantly working on making things more transparent in every way and in every direction, from foundation to aggregators to ENA and all the way back. We are trying to come to good models of co-decision making, co-governance, and we hope, of course, that as a management board, we can also collaborate increasingly intense and close throughout our membership. We're talking almost 4,000 people here. It's impossible to have little one-on-ones with everybody, but yeah, I think in principle we are open to talk to any of our members at any time with ideas, with concerns, with topics for discussion. So this is what we mean by close cooperation. Let's also not forget that we will represent, or we will operate one of the data spaces. There's a plethora of others already established or still emerging. This is kind of a paradigm shift, I think, for our work in cultural heritage, that we will now be actively interconnecting with and trying to improve our interoperability with these other data spaces. A final point that I want to mention here is that it's the very explicit request also of the Commission that we look at stakeholder groups outside of our immediate core circle. And indeed, this should always be our ambition, to have a data space that is inclusive and that is diverse, and where also stakeholders that perhaps are currently nowhere near the network feel welcome, feel attracted, and maybe one day will feel eager and enthusiastic to join us. This was an important one. If you think back of the, of course, of all the efforts Europeana already made in past years towards younger audiences, new professionals, important buzzword, important priority, but also think back of the Europeana 2022 conference, where we had one of the provocative statements came from some youthful professionals who asked the question, could we be involved in somehow drawing and coloring the lines and the shapes of this data space? Our reaction was, the more the better. So we see a slight disconnect there, a sort of, I don't know, a threshold maybe for youngsters to really actively or proactively take part in shaping this this initiative, while we welcome them with open arms. We want to hear from them. They can help reconceptualize and kind of mold or shape the brand that is already Europeana, not only by raising awareness in their own age groups and their own ecosystems, but also because of their completely different experience of the digital. And many of them are digitally born, and I think we need their insights and their skills to take this data space to be, a cutting edge one, a go-to place where innovative things happen. Our third priority, definitely, it's maybe I should have called it number one. It's building capacity. Building capacity not only with you, our members, but also within the different pillars of the Europeana initiative, and beyond that, all its stakeholders. Because we do realize that in this membership, in the 100 of people, the 123 people here in this meeting, and far beyond, there is an incredible amount of experience and expertise close by, let's say, with some of you closer than others. We would like to shorten the distance between those who need certain training, certain skills, certain knowledge, and those who actually have it. Rob already mentioned this idea of developing a new platform for meeting and matching, communicating, exchanging, sharing, and so on. We believe that this could be a pivotal factor in getting closer to our members, having an ear tuned towards what you're telling us that you need, but also making sure that at some point you get that offer from the best people in the best formats, the best circumstances. Also for capacity building in digital transition, Europeana and our data space should become a beacon. And finally, Fred, number 4, and this perhaps also not rightfully so is number 4, could easily have been number 0, because if we don't have a climate-proof data space, then what are we doing? We could not be more grateful and excited with the climate action community that has gone off to take a flying start. Susan will bring us up to speed in just a little while. What we aim to do here really is to stretch far beyond the membership of ENA, all throughout the initiative, but we want to reach the wider sector, and we even, I think, may aspire to inspire other sectors as well with the in-depth work on analysis and planning and sharing of best practices that we are currently embarking upon. And this goes in all directions of climate action, from analyzing to costing. In the end, it's a factor that we cannot underestimate. Putting timings to it, making some risk assessments, assessing also the feasibility of some of these necessary but aspirational ideas that we have. It will be a very important focal point running through the next couple of years. Unfortunately, it will remain high on our priority list. These are our big four. I think we also managed to get back on schedule. I'm happy to report, Mr. Chair. And if you switch just one slide on, Fred, I'm carrying on with proudly introducing our 7 communities. So this year, indeed, we are 7. We are truly grateful for the representatives of the steering group of each of those communities to join us today, to tell us a little bit about what 2022 has been like for them, and especially how they see themselves blossoming in the data space. Before I give the word first to our friends at Tech, I believe Greg is already here, I hope so. Before I do so, I want to respectfully ask all the speakers to keep it at 5 minutes approximately. I know this is a huge challenge, I'm sorry for that. But your slides are there and everybody can follow your story even beyond and after this AGM. So without further ado, Gregory and the tech community, please kick it off.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sophie, for the introduction. It's been a long time since I've seen some of you, but I'm happy to be back and at it. For those of you that don't know, Europeana Tech is the longest running community within the Europeana ecosystem, and it is a community of almost nearly 2,000 R&D professionals from within the digital cultural heritage sector, mostly from Europe, but also from all around the world. And Europeana Tech works to stay on top and keep track of and do research into and facilitate other research into technological developments happening within digital cultural heritage across all the different domains, content types, and sectors. It could not be more multidisciplinary and more diverse in terms of the expertise that exists within the community. I won't give a shout out to everyone that's part of the Europeana Tech community because there are, in terms of the governance, but there are a lot of them, and we're very grateful to have all of them on board. Next slide, please. So some things that have been happening this year and are really going to start taking more effect and having more impact in 2023 is the ongoing IIIF and Europeana Tech Working Group, which is really now being pushed so heavily and so nicely by Henning and the Aggregators Forum. IIIF and Europeana Tech have had a long-standing and very healthy and collaborative relationship over the past 5, 6, 7 years, and there's just continues to be room to grow and room to collaborate and room to improve. So if you are interested in IIIF, which is the International Image Interoperability Framework, maybe you've heard the acronym, maybe you've heard the name, be sure to join either the Slack channel for Europeana on the IIIF Slack, or just keep an eye out for any future webinars that will be coming, like the one we have near the end of November. We will also have 2 new task forces, and well, we have 2 new task forces, and their results will be available ideally in 2023. One will be on linked data integration and publication. Linked data has been, again, another long-standing topic for Europeana Tech since I can even remember. And so we're very happy to have another active and proactive task force that's looking into how we can make sure that we're staying on the forefront of what linked open data has to offer. The other one is one that's also close to my heart, and this will be workflow from shelf to Europeana. And this will focus on how more open source tools, especially ones that were once available on Europeana Tech's FLOSS inventory, can be better supported and be better implemented and have stronger sustainability models so that institutes around Europe and within the Europeana ecosystem can make use of valuable and relevant open source tools for years to come. Next slide, please. 2022. So indeed, full disclosure, you might have thought, oh, Europeana Tech was a little bit quiet this year. And that was the case. We've definitely been more active in the past, whether it be with Europeana Tech Insight or having more webinars or more events. This was due to quite some different management reshufflings within the community manager role. And like I said, we're all back and we're all ready to go, and we're all really looking forward to 2023. Some stuff, of course, did happen, like the Europeana Tech's contribution to the Europeana 2022 conference, which was mostly done by Hank Alcomeda and Tiziana Lombardo. So thank you to them for making sure that Europeana Tech had a space on that program. As I had already mentioned, IIIF and Europeana Tech continue its longstanding relationship, and also a shout out to Glenn Robson, who is the IIIF Technical Community Manager, who is also very instrumental in keeping this collaboration alive. November will be exciting. We will have an upcoming series of blogs on the topic of heritage acoustics, which is new terrain for Europeana Tech, but it's something that we're very passionate about and think that it deserves more attention. So there will be blogs and a webinar on that topic. And as I mentioned as well, there will be another IIIF webinar near the end of November. Next slide, please. Activity plan, we're working on it. It looks a lot like our activity plans in the past. 3D, floss, linked open data, AI, IIIF, audiovisual playout. The usual hits are all there. Heritage acoustics is definitely one of the new things that we're introducing into the plan, and are really excited to see how the Europeana Tech community, but also the entire Europeana network responds to this topic. There will be webinars, and the biggest thing, it's been 5 years, but we will be bringing back the Europeana Tech conference in 2023. So again, stay tuned for that. Benito.
Thank you, Greg. I'm getting excited with this idea of heritage acoustics. No idea what it is, but it sounds absolutely marvelous.
Cool,
and
cool.
Yeah, the fact that you're bringing that back Europeana Tech, I mean, that's already legendary, right? So yeah, that's a must see, or a must be, I would say. Is it going to be a physical thing, or you expect it to be online?
Details to come. There's actually a meeting after this meeting to really start kicking out the details. So probably some hybrid form, if I'm to guess, but okay. Don't hold me to that.
Greg, there's a question for you in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you all of the tech community. We wish you a very successful 2023. We're also looking forward to seeing what you're coming up with. Switching to Europeana research, I believe that it's my fellow countryman Steven who is carrying the flag for the researchers. Steven, are you here?
Yes, I am, Sophie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. This is from the research community, and I will start with a very quick reminder about what we are here for. Europeana research community, well, we aim to foster the use of digital cultural heritage in academia and research. It's as simple and as complicated as that. Lion's share of our community members work at GLAM institutes or at research institutions and universities. You can see the steering group over there. It's me as the chair, Rebecca is our co-chair, Alba, our respected community manager, and Flavia and Ines. Next slide, please. So in retrospect, last year, I think that was the year where we started things. We're still a rather young community, but we finally started doing a few things. We kicked off the Europeana Research Community Cafes. We had a few great sessions, one with Thomas Padilla, for instance, about his work with our collections as data, one with James Baker about legacies of catalogs and catalog descriptions and ethics. And we are planning to have a next one by the end of this year. So keep an eye on our newsflash. We also initiated discussion on data sheets for digital cultural heritage in collaborations with our colleagues from tech. This is about documenting digital heritage data sets to encourage transparency and accountability, to mitigate unwanted bias, potential risks, etc. And we finally started strengthening the collaboration with the Europeana Research Advisory Board, which is a good thing, I think. And now we have the intention to organize something together next year. So Europeana Research Community and Europeana Research Advisory Board. Next slide. These are the first ideas for our community plan for next year. We will, of course, keep organizing our cafes. We hope to organize something in collaboration with the European Research Advisory Board, like I said, but we would want to focus on two things apart from that next year. On the one hand, supporting engagement with the academic and research community in the data space. This is about the data sheets I already mentioned, but also about organizing the feedbacks on the collections data workflows that will be developed by Daria, one of the partners in the data space. And on the other hand, providing guidance and insight for the academic and research and heritage communities in the quite complex European heritage and research infrastructures ecosystem. Because especially on this cross-section of heritage and research where our community is situated, the European ecosystem can be quite complicated. So we're looking for ways to try to make this, well, to entangle this a little. But we still have to figure out how we're going to organize this. So that was it. Thank you so much for listening. And please, if you have any ideas or feedback, do get in touch with us.
Thank you, Stefan. I think this community is a healthy little toddler, isn't it? Looking back on this year and seeing your plans, which completely align or reflect the priorities that we expressed for the tender, and you're reaching out throughout your network, but also aligning with others and fostering these connections. I mean, this is exciting to see what will happen, and you will be certainly in the forefront of exploring interoperability, whatever that might mean. It's more than a technical term, right? So yeah, I'm also curious to see how that unfolds throughout next year and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move on to Fred. What is our next community?
Lost control.
We're catching up, guys.
Education.
Educational demo. How could I forget? You guys have been reporting to us several times in the past few months, and every time we almost fall off our chairs with what you are managing to accomplish. This is a blossoming community, so please tell us what was the past year like for you and what are you planning for 2023?
Sure. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. We are pretty busy, actually. Just to remind everyone why we are here, what we do. We try to bring together all those who really work both in education as such and cultural education. And we try to organize occasions to share experiences, projects, stay informed on what Europeana does and offers to all the educators across Europe. Let me first start by welcoming our new members. I think I cannot use the remote control. Yeah, here it is. So here, this is our steering committee, and I want really to warmly welcome Georgia, Tatiana, and Rahul, who are brand new in the committee. We cover several fields where cultural heritage education is offered, from libraries, archives, museums, and of course, school. And let me also mention our cooperation with European SchoolNet and Historiana, with which we realize several projects during the years. This year, next slide, please. Okay. This year we are conducting the second edition of built with bits. Here you also have some videos you can go through after the meeting for more information. This initiative was very successful last year. That's the reason why we have a second edition. We promote creativity for teachers and students in creating immersive spaces aligned with the priorities of the new European Bauhaus. In December, we will see the results of this second edition. Also, as you can see from my background, the top initiative which is ongoing in these days, it's the Low Code Fest, first attempt to have a hackathon engaging our community of teachers. We are working with them and building their capacity to first understand and then imaging different uses of our APIs. So for those who are curious, there will be a public event the next 11th of November, where you will be able to see the results of these educational hackathon, where teachers are really involved, also their students, in proposing ideas for future projects. That's why we are also planning for next year to have a second hackathon, this time addressing higher education students in order to really concretize the proposals of the teachers. Also, it was quite important, the presentation, well, first the co-production together with Centrum Cyfro and Euroclio of the Open GLAM report. This is a report focusing on teachers and educators' perspective on digital cultural resources, offering several insights on open educational resources in the cultural heritage sector. And the report is now available online. And we are now about to meet in December, finally face-to-face with a member of the steering committee, because we are really waiting for next year, which has been appointed as the European Year of Skills. So we really want to brainstorm a lot and propose new activities, new offers for our community. Definitely the main focus will be keeping on try to enhance the collaboration between education and cultural operators in order to provide opportunities to build the skills of the sector. And let me just conclude with announcing a matchmaking event, which will happen during January. Still, I don't have the dates, but this will be an occasion to build partnerships for the next Erasmus Plus call, waited for March next year. And we will also launch a task force, which was proposed this year, didn't manage to start, but it's pretty interesting because we will focus on using digitized historical newspaper in education. And finally, also aligned with the data space priorities and the strategic priorities of Europeana, we really want to do more in the youth sector. So accept us to come out with new ideas and initiatives very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo, and kudos to your community. Every month when Rob, the chairman, and myself are approving the membership applications, we are stunned by the amount of people eager to join this community. I really believe that educators are finding their way more and more to Europeana. And this is all the more important since, as you rightfully say, Matteo, you are kind of a gateway to these young professionals and these young people that we really want to welcome and to guide to also explore this realm of digital cultural heritage. So yes, the more we can support you and help you gain wider attention for these initiatives that you're organizing, the better. And we will hopefully increasingly be able to do so in the next couple of years. So thank you so much.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Let's move on to our friends at the communicators community. And I believe it's Peter who will take the mic here.
Yes. I'm just waiting for the... Yes, I can control my slides. So welcome everybody. I'm Peter Soemers, chair of the communicators community, who deals with communication in the area of cultural heritage, together with our fabulous colleagues from Europeana Foundation, Georgia Evans and Apode. Here you see our steering group, and I want to point out there are two new faces in the middle of the upper row. Barbara van Kampen from Germany. She strengthens the educational aspect in our group. And Carola Cardino from Italy. She contributes her research on the use of social media and storytelling in museums. Our activity highlights from 2022. Contribution to the Digital Storytelling Festival, collaboration with the Climate Action Community on a session at Europeana 2022, how cultural institutions tell the story of climate change. The recording is still available in Europeana's YouTube channel, and the topic remains, of course, very important: how to communicate climate crisis in a positive way, inspiring meaningful action. Third highlight, collaboration with Europeana Foundation staff on a series of communications webinars that is still running. The next one will be on 29 November, how to build your storytelling skills. We have some aspirations for the common European data space for cultural heritage. The first one, all data in the data space are traces and memories of human lives. We want to safeguard and showcase this by advocating storytelling as an essential element, and by advocating that space will be transparent and accessible to all. The second aspiration focuses more on end users, and end users should not come only at the end. In the past years, many cultural heritage institutions have been developing so-called participatory approaches, offering citizens the possibility to contribute to the collections by annotating and translating data and by telling their stories related to objects. Europeana did the same by crowdsourcing projects and by campaigns like World War I, migration and sports. As communicators, we want to see participatory approaches as an integral part of the design and content of this data space, with cultural heritage institutions ensuring that all their work and projects consider their community. Citizens should be able to recognize the data space as their cultural heritage, their data space, and to take ownership. Use and reuse is value. This doesn't necessarily mean that everything should be conceptualized and organized like before, but the technical infrastructure should offer opportunities and the right mindset should be given. If you have questions, remarks, or inspiration for us, please contact us. And of course, we are happy if other people would like to join our steering group. So please contact me in the way that is suitable for you. Many thanks.
Bravo from your colleague Mariana, who is also carrying the flag for this community. Yeah, Peter, nothing is more powerful, I think, than a good story that is told in an engaging way, with especially kinds of collections that we have at our fingertips in Europeana. So I think the potential here is endless and is immense. And thank you so much for kind of shifting a little bit our perspective on this data space, which indeed should be not only user-oriented, but also user-driven, right? The kernel of participation is this idea of reciprocity. And perhaps in the past, we have not fully been there, also because technology or infrastructure or the right processes and methodologies were lacking. But indeed, with the data space, a new momentum is presenting itself. So I think communication within and beyond the data space about what we're doing and what cultural heritage can tell in terms of stories and make people feel included, welcome, heard, that will be of unprecedented value and importance. So thank you for all your work, and kudos to this community as well.
Thank you.
Very good, because we're now quickly jumping to the impact community. I think I can welcome Ad Pole to the stage. Ad, are you reaching?
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sophie. My name is Ad Pole. I'm the manager of the Europeana Impact Community, and as such, I'm the liaison between Europeana and INA in that sense, and the impact community in particular. We are a community of professionals that are interested in what impact has cultural heritage on the people who interact with it and with its services. And as a group, as such, we discuss the value of impact and the challenges that we face when we assess it. On this first slide, you can see the current composition of the steering group, and I have a slight announcement to make. This is the last time you will see this group together as such, because this year our chair, Maaike Verberg, decided to step down as a chair. So at the moment, we're looking for new roles and dividing the new fields of interest within the steering group. We welcome 2 new members this year, Antonio Davide from Italy, from ICU, long-time partner for Europeana, as well as Nienke van Schavenbeek, now with Sound and Vision in the Netherlands, also a long-term partner for Europeana. We're looking for new members who are interested. We will do a call to action in various ways. So if you are interested, you can also reach out to one of these people you see on screen now, or wait until we make an announcement for that. Next slide, please. A lengthy text, but I think it comes down to 3 important words: embedding, sharing, and development. Because that's what we continuously do in various ways. An example of the first would be the embedding on various levels. And one of them is that we now have set up a systematic for Europeana to evaluate all the public Zoom events and Zoom sessions, so that we can actually survey people on the results and measure directly the impact of what we do. And of course, we also work together with several generic services projects where we have to perform we don't do the work for them, but we help them assess the impact from their work in those projects. One of the examples being the Enrich Plus Europeana project, where we measure the impact at all the public events that we organize, all the transcribathons that are organized within the context of that project. When it comes to sharing, we also do that in various ways. We share the knowledge that we gather. We share the available resources on Europeana Pro, and one of the best examples I can give is that we did that my colleague Nicole and Maaike did during the NEMO conference in Lule in Portugal last month, where they organized a workshop on how to work on the impact in a digital cultural environment, and that was very well received at that point. Another example is, and that's a major effort actually for this year from our community, is that we published the last phase 4 of the Impact Playbook, which is now available, and that means that we have the whole now together, and we can work more on how to share this information and make it more digestible for people now that we have all the 4 phases in place. And that's actually another one when it comes to development. I think the Impact Light Training and Community Building Task Force, which had a meeting, I think it's 8th meeting this year, yesterday, is doing a great job, and they're working on making the resources workable for people so that they can be used in training for cultural heritage institutions. This work is not finished yet. It will be finished in December, and then we will build further on the results of the outcomes of that task force. And one other example about sharing that I forgot to mention here is the fact that we published the impact assessment of the INA membership that we did in 2021, and which you can find on Pro, where you can read all the results of this. And we will continue to build further on that work as well. Next slide, please. Talking about continuing the work. Sorry, miss my own input here. What we will do is make sure that we embed, again, hear that word, the impact playbook more into the data space. So we will implement it and at several locations and make it available for capacity building purposes within the data space. And an important aspect of that is, of course, the data collections from all the partners, and from Europeana side, we will coordinate that as much as possible. And the third element, which already started, is that we would like to work more in cooperation with the other communities. So we started some initiatives towards that. We've already reached out to some of the chairs and some of the managers of other groups. And eventually this will also lead to an event which will take place in March next year, when we have the Impact Month, which will have several not only webinars, but also blogs and other kind of activities all related to impact. And the input from other communities there is very much welcomed. And finally, I would like to point out the fact that we actually start to kick off the implementation of the work of the playbook and all the impact work for the data space already on next week, on the 11th of November. It's a Friday, where we, in the context of the Czech presidency of the Council of the EU, we will hold an online webinar, or symposium is actually the word, on digital transformation in the data space. And there we'll be going into the details of measurement and assessment thereof. So please go to this link or look on the Pro website so that you can join this event. I guess that's it from my side.
Thank you, Wat. This Impact Month sounds incredibly exciting. I'm now very curious what you're having installed for the community and beyond, of course. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Okay, I'll keep it silent for now, because the more excited you get, the better it is. So more information later.
Surprises are always nice. Yes,
Exactly.
I also wanted to say that it's clear through this whole year of conversations about and around the tender and what can a data space for cultural heritage mean and be. Discussions about impact have become, or have always been maybe, but now for me it was more explicitly expressed, that it's like a lighthouse. It's like the vuurtoren that somehow guides us through muddy waters and storms and takes us to this place at the horizon where in the end we would love to be. And yeah, we need to navigate very diligently in the next couple of years. So I think the work of this community is really, giving us some important pointers to that end.
The lighthouse of the data space. I really like that. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ad. Can I switch now just 1 meter across the table here to my colleague Fred for some copyright news?
Trying to turn on my camera. Working. There we go. You'll just have to deal without that. So, yeah, very good morning, everybody. So I'm really pleased to report on the activities of the copyright community. So I wanted to pull out just 3 highlights from the work that we've been doing this year in the copyright community. So the first of those is to highlight the Europeana copyright guidelines that we published this year. I've put a QR code up there if you would like to go and find them whilst we're talking. and I can see about putting a link in the chat later. The copyright guidelines are aimed specifically at helping cultural heritage organizations to embed copyright best practice in their activities. So developing a harmonized approach to copyright across the organization. We hope that it's a really accessible workflow approach to this for anyone in the organization. And you can see an extract of it here. It's talking about who should be doing things and what sort of activities need to be done at different stages, what sort of documentation needs to be done, and how things need to be documented. So we're really hoping that that's helpful, that you can make use of that in your organizations and tell your peers and tell us feedback to us about how it might be improved and made more helpful for keeping that under revision. So like I said, that's the first version of that published this year. The second highlight to really talk about is the Out of Commerce Working Group. So that's a working group we started up this year, which is looking at the provisions in European legislation about enabling works that are in copyright but no longer or have never been in commerce to be more accessible. And I think that's a really big treasure trove, if you like, for cultural heritage. So it's a really active working group we've got started up there that's looking at the legal solutions that exist in that field and how they can be better promoted and made more accessible for cultural heritage institutions. And the final third highlight is our copyright office hours. So we've continued, we started these last year, and I'm really pleased that we've continued this year, most months running an office hour session apart from, I think August it was, in the highlight of summer. We're running a session every month, really focusing different months on different topics and trying to get a safe space for people across the sectors to come and talk about their copyright concerns and challenges and activities. And those are going really well. We're always getting a really good turnout for those and some really good discussions. So I hope that they're continuing to prove useful to everyone who's come along to those as well. Briefly wanted to talk about our ideas for contributing to the data space and just to point two of those out. It's already been mentioned, the data governance mechanisms and how important and central those are to what we're doing in the data space. And a really big sort of component, and I think guide to that, is what's happened so far with the Europeana licensing framework and the work that's been done in the past on rights and rights statements. And there's been a question about that already in the Q&A this morning about the rights statements. So we're hoping to really be involved in participating in the identification of principles and substance of the data governance mechanism, developing from the Europeana licensing framework and contributing to the way that the Europeana licensing framework itself has evolved over the coming year, and as well as contributing to the definition of cooperation agreement within the data space. And I won't go through all of these line by line, but just to put up what we're thinking about doing next year. I thought this was a nice opportunity to just highlight our thoughts. They're not done yet, but the ways in which we're thinking of contributing through our work next year. So possibly starting up a new working group and really, sort of fleshing out the copyright guidelines. And as I just said there, really working on the European licensing framework, as well as continuing our work with the Out of Commerce Works and with the copyright policy office hours that we started last year. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. You were eloquent and to the point, as we know you. Thank you very much for that. I am quickly keeping an eye on our schedule, jumping to the climate action community. And I'm wondering if Susan Hassan knows why we put her last in line here. Susan, of course, your toddler, let's say it's still a baby because this is a very young yet vibrant community, but also you are such a tough act to follow. So we just had to welcome you as community number 7. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sophie. I'm very sorry, guys, to rain on your parade, but things don't bode very well, and we need to have a call to action. So Europeana is having a very strong call to action through our Europeana Climate Action Community. So we're a young community, okay, we're the last and the least, and we're a growing community, but we've been building our community up since March this year, building and nurturing and building a group culture and a working method. And we've been planning together and beginning to make some traction what we're doing. In terms of Europeana 2022, I think we had quite a nice showing there. Quite a lot happened. And I'll tell you a little bit. Oops, let me just go back a bit. Oops, it's running away. Tell you a little bit about what we've been doing in these very few months that we've been going. The membership so far is 227, but at the end of this meeting, all you guys out there are going to sign up, of course, which means that exponentially the community will grow. Everybody needs to know, everybody needs to do, everybody needs to take action. This is serious stuff. Okay, we're facing climate disaster. I told you, I haven't come here to celebrate, I've come to rain on your parade. But we have a really good steering group behind us, an excellent group of people, contributing in very professional, very different ways and making their voices heard. So that's a really good start to this community, and all these smiling faces are here. A special shout out to Shadi, our manager, who is absolutely brilliant, keeps us together and leads us, and just absolutely wonderful. So with our steering group and with Shadi, we've actually written our first community work plan for 2023, which we saw as sort of an iterative process, a coordinated, co-created process. And we went through different stages to a feasibility check, and we went to our community for community feedback. It was the steering group who was leading this. So this is already a work plan, and we hope that it'll start taking shape in the very near future. 3 strands, basically. The first and probably the most important at this stage is a survey. You can't do anything until you know what's out there. So we're going to design and publish a digital information management survey with Killian and a group of very nice people from the steering group. Anybody who feels they have the skills and the interest to join in the survey, you're very welcome to join us for this particular task. At the moment, as a working group, we hope to turn this into a task force, and you're very welcome to join us. Our second strand is how the community contributes to climate awareness, and then from awareness to action to the data space. The communities, through cross-community action, collaboration, and working with the Europeana team to editorial and curatorial content. And the third and the last, but no less important strand, is to reach out through the entire Europeana network and to raise awareness about climate action across the sector and disseminate good knowledge and good practice. We're doing so in specific ways. We've already had our second drop-in. We have a series of monthly themed drop-ins or drops-in, looking at eco-responsibility, eco-responsive websites, digital cleanup, collection action, energy saving, activism, which is really interesting. I could talk about that for 20 minutes, but I won't. Carbon offsetting and efficiency and sufficiency. So these are brainstorming meetings, and as the first one was about our manifesto, the manifesto is what is anchoring us. And the second one, which we had this week, was with Nelson Brito from University of Coimbra, and he had a wonderful presentation, 15% energy savings. Where can we start? Where do we go from here? From rules of thumb to personal experience. And we learned an awful lot from him in that very short hour. Well, it's taking a while. I'm very proud of the fact, very proud of the fact that in a very short time, the community has got together and was able to make quite a substantial contribution to Europeana 2022. One of the panel discussions was on climate. We can't take credit for that, but we're very happy to see it there. And then we had Caitlin's keynote on the future of heritage. And in collaboration with the communicators, we had a very nice session on how cultural institutions tell the story of climate change, which is a really good vehicle to get people into action. And our dear Eva presented her research on a strong sustainability framework for digital preservation of cultural heritage. That was excellent. And then Matthias, I don't know if anybody who was in The Hague came and put the headphones on and saw the VR experience in the Algarve underwater and watched the little seahorses swimming with the plastic kind of raining down on them. Very, very provocative and very insightful VR experience to understand the effects of what we're dealing with. So how are we going to do this? We first and foremost, we're going to collaborate with our sister communities. We've already met with Europeana Tech. We hope that they will help us also with our survey, as will the communicators. And with the impact community, we're talking about a new chapter in the impact playbook. So we hope that'll be useful. So some sort of training environment. And in terms of the data space, we're looking beyond our own cultural heritage data space outwards, to look at the Green Deal and other areas that we can collaborate and look beyond our own kind of internal focus. And next week, there's the new COP27. It's going to take place in my neighborhood in Cairo. And people are very disappointed from the previous one from Glasgow and very nervous about this one coming up, so much so that Greta Thunberg has refused to join climate COP27. And she's saying this is all about governments and industry greenwashing. So we're trying to keep above, to understand what's going on in our sector and reach beyond our sector and learn so that we can, within our community, move in the quick, most agile way possible in an area that needs a very quick response. So before, what was it that Rob said, that I have very strong feelings? Yes, I do. I hope now that you all have very strong feelings and think about joining us in the community and adding your contributions and actions to what I think is really, really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And indeed, this urgency, it really came across what you reported on and what you projected that is in our immediate future. I think this energetic and synergetic approach that you're proposing and that you're working on is the way to go. So again, everybody here, consider joining this community for sure. Thank you very much, everyone. You are such an asset to the ENA as a whole, and we truly appreciate all your volunteered time, all your dedication to all these activities, and we highly celebrate and encourage the accomplishments such as the ones you just presented to us. And this brings us to the end of the community part, and we move on now to a part that we've tried to keep as compact as possible, but it's still important. We need your formal approval of certain documents, and our chair, Rob, is going to maneuver you through this field.
That's one way of putting it, Sophie, thank you. Yeah, okay, so first of all, I'd like to just reiterate how amazing it is to hear about the work of all the communities pulled together like this. Every time this happens, I'm just knocked out, and I think it's fair to say that the communities are the absolute heart of anything that ENA is achieving. So we're really, really grateful for this work and look forward to its continuation. And secondly, how great it is to see Susan at the helm of this, my predecessor as chair of the Network Association and one of the Europeana greats, I think. And it's very good to see her pushing this forward, this important action forward in this way. Okay, let's move on then now to the approval of the formal ENA reports. What we're going to do here is very briefly, well, briefly for most of them, slightly less briefly with the budget. We're going to introduce each thing that we're asking you to approve. The status of this approval is something we do at every meeting like this, but of course, there's only a part of the membership here. So we subsequently, assuming that the show of hands that you give, the Mentimeter show of hands that you give is positive, we would then go out to the network as a whole and ask for the actual formal vote which approves this. So this is a first, if you like, but a very important feedback on these reports. And Fred is going to look after the voting. Can I have the next slide, please, Fred? Okay, so first of all, now we'd like to introduce these formal documents that we're going to ask you to vote on one by one. The first of these is the minutes of the last meeting. Mariana is going to introduce this.
Yeah, how exciting, the minutes of the last report. Out of the fun part just goes to me. Yeah, just to know that, yeah, on November 3rd, 2021, we had the General Assembly meeting. And yeah, I just want to go very, very briefly on that. And it was approved by the 90% of the voters. And obviously, we will look for the remaining 3% beach houses, and we will beat them until they change, obviously, their vote to a positive way. we have seen all this successful and inspiring work of all the communities. We have seen all the 16 communities reporting today, and then we have had the we have had the new one. I was going to say that, Rob. You don't trust me, huh? No, it's not a good thing. Yeah, and it was the new one, obviously, just born, and all the wonderful work of all the task forces and working group. And I've highlighted this because the decision to embrace the diverse and inclusive representation in the network was one of the focal points for the member council in 2021, and obviously still in 22 and for the years to come, because it's very, very important. And I think cross working group and cross task forces and cross initiative and cross everything, because it's too important. The activity plan for 2022 was focused on obviously these points, and you can find the minutes on all the files of the General Assembly at this link, and they obviously will share all the slides, but communication with members has been really an important part of all the work of all the communities, and obviously the information flow on members' preferences, onboarding for the new members. We have seen the buddy systems, the mentoring, and a lot of new work as done and to be done obviously in the future. Obviously Milena will show you all the related topics about the financial reports, all the new ones, but everything has been approved, so I'm not surfing on any boring numbers now. We have said goodbye to the old management board, and we are now seeing here the new awesome, wonderful, exciting new management board. And so thank you for the work, obviously, to the old one, and we are the young ones nowadays. So yeah, that's pretty everything I think it's important to say about the reports and minutes and everything. So please, colleagues, go on.
Thank you very much. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you very much, Mariana. And although you say we are the new management, we're actually about halfway through our term now, so I don't know how long we can keep on saying that. Okay, so the next thing to introduce, which I will do, is the annual report. You see the link there to it, and it's already been circulated to you. By way of introduction, it came to our attention that very few people were ever opening the previous annual reports. A lot of work was going into them. They were long documents, and perhaps because they were long documents, nobody much could be bothered to read them. So without compromising a need to produce an annual report, we've tried to produce something slightly shorter and more concise this year, and very much like your view on whether it's the right kind of thing. Hope you've had a chance to read it, but if not, you still have before the vote goes online, as it were. Now, I'll say very briefly what's in it. The first section is a kind of introductory overview written by me, which covers many of the things that I said in my opening session of this event. Things about the pattern of membership growth, the cooperation between the pillars, the data space, and looking at the mechanisms and so on. It's a kind of summary of the things that I introduced in the beginning of this session. We then go on to a section about community membership. There's some diagrams here which show how many members there are in each community. And each community here, it's just a highlight from each community, a chosen highlight by the community with a link then to their more detailed reports. We have a session on governance, which is about the members' council, management board, the secretariat and their roles. And we then have a budget, but I'd like to say here that this budget it's in the annual report, was produced a little while ago, not very long ago, but a little while ago, and the discussion about the budget for the network is an ongoing thing, which is proceeding as we speak. And so what Milena presents today will not be exactly the same that's in the annual report. In fact, it will be something developed from that, but slightly different. So I ask you to bear that in mind. And then there's a section at the end on communications, which is about what we do with pro newsletters and social media, all of which are important things because they're all up for review now and they're all up for further development in the new contract. So that's basically the substance of the annual report. It is rather shorter than previous years. I would really like you to ask for your approval, given that you approve of what we've done with it. Thank you very much. Okay, the next slide, please, Fred.
Yes, for the thank you, Rob. For the activity plan of 2023, should you not have had the opportunity to take a look, then we invite you to do so, because this will be kind of our guiding light for the next couple of months, in which we have tried to reflect diligently the strategic priorities as expressed earlier in this AGM. We translated them to a number of topics for discussion. So this means that we do not all know all the answers today. So we are discussing and we are connecting with you guys and the cross initiative as often as we can. We are working on ideas such as what could be a new mode of conversation. How could we enhance collaboration across and beyond the initiative? How could we build capacity in a way that is efficient, that is diverse, that is somehow community driven and user driven? How can we also mine our network in such a way that Europeana also gets to taste all this expertise that is present across our topic for this team. Definitely is this idea of reinforcing the national presentation and representation of Europeana in the member states across Europe, and will be actually looking at instigating some sort of a pilot action where we try to have a few country groups, a few country advocacy groups that will help make Europeana more visible, more prioritary, and more at the top of national agendas as well as international ones. Priority actions that we've set ourselves are working on our strategy, and of course here we not only have to keep in mind the tender and the implementation plan, but we also want to look beyond to other data spaces, to other regulations that have been put in place either on a national or a European level. We want to really sculpt our network, so we don't want to stagnate or consolidate, or we don't want to see any, let's say, any decrease in membership. If one thing, we want to make it more inclusive, we want to extend the association, we want to look at domains where perhaps we are not well represented yet, so this prospect is important as well. And what we really would like to do is to kind of shake people awake. There is a part of the network that is kind of, let's say, dormant or perhaps not very active, and that is all right. Not everybody should have exactly the same role in the network, but we would like to know a little bit more also about these slightly lesser known territories in the ENA. And then finally, once we know better and we extend our network, we really want to work with our members more intently and intensively. So empower you and also invite you to share with us and to strengthen everything that happens daily across the initiative. Next slide, please, Fred. You can also read in this activity plan how we are intending to organize this work. So many of the established bodies and communication means will remain in place. We are not throwing everything out with the bath water, but of course we are recalibrating, and this is in alignment with what we expressed in the tender and the new needs that we feel are of importance in the context of the data space. Keep already in mind that in 2023, we will be looking for 10 new counselors for the MC. So that's something to already pin to your minds. We're expecting a few more working groups and task forces, and I named but a few there, but I think there's an avalanche of new initiatives coming, just measuring the warmth of the water with all of the communities and their enthusiastic actions. We are ambitious in expanding the membership. We hope to have 50 to 80 applications monthly, and this should take us well over 4,000 members in the next year. The country advocacy groups have already been mentioned. This is clearly something new, something that we want to pilot. And then finally, the cross-pillar collaboration has already been mentioned as well. We are constantly exploring better ways to talk to one another, to be transparent, to keep each other in the loop rather more often than we have done in the past. And then finally, you can already catch a glimpse in the activity plan of the events that will be happening next year. Next slide, please, Fred. Yes, so you can check per quarter what we are envisaging. Of course, there will be another AGM, there will be a yearly Europeana conference, more or less along the lines of what we have done in the past years, but perhaps with slight shifts of which we will keep you up to date through our communications and our different communication channels. That's it for the activity plan. I now leave the floor to Milena to talk about numbers and budgets.
Just briefly, this is a work in progress. This is ongoing, so please bear that in mind when Milena presents.
Yes, so hello from me as well. Now we have several slides when the nice illustrations taken from Europeana are replaced by tables of dull figures. And my task is to briefly explain them, although as with the annual reports, these financial reports have been circulated to you. Being a network, most of our activities were focused around networking, and this was reflected in our budgets, and obviously COVID had its impact. When we look back to 2021, this is a year where we were adapting to more online and hybrid work, and this was a year when we had a large amount of underspent funds due to meetings which were face-to-face meetings which were called off. The good news for us was that this money which were not spent were then added to the budget for 2022. In this format of the budget, we have three main lines: travel and meeting costs, communities and task forces, and other costs related to elections. This was the use of software, which was supporting this whole process. So this is all pretty clear. And this whole budget is a sort of a little tip of a big iceberg in which we have two additional tiers. This is the efforts of the staff of Europeana Foundation. We saw in the presentations of the various communities what an active role people from the foundation also play in running the work of the communities. And something which is pretty much unknown until today is how to quantify the voluntary efforts of everyone who is contributing, all the members, all the members of the steering groups of communities, the members of the membership of the members council, and us as a management board. This is not quantified in any way. We are not managing this budget in terms of bookkeeping. This is something which again Europeana Foundation is doing for us, but we are overlooking how this budget is spent. And basically the principles were to support all communities equally and to assist with networking costs, which in the light of the climate emergencies we are experiencing is something we are rethinking. Next slide, please. So in this overview, we could see how much the various communities had allocated in 2022. We can see the savings which they got added from 2021, and this is to give an idea that when you hear about all the splendid activities of the various communities, Actually, when you look at these budgets, they support a very little fraction of what the communities are able to achieve. So many thanks from all of us for the great voluntary effort which is involved in all this. Next slide, please. So these were the communities in the last year, and this is the overall budget overview. We have the operating costs as a budget line, the governance costs, the communities expenses. We had a line for task forces, which we decided to remove because this was like an additional opportunity. Normally task forces are supported by the budgets of the community, so this was a sort of an additional little budget. In the last year, we also had to work around introducing grants for members of the network associations to travel to the annual conference in the cases they don't have other support to do so. So this also emerged as a new line in our budget. I'm explaining this whole transition because it leads us to the proposed budget for the next year. Next slide, please. So here we can see pretty much a similar structure, but we see more columns. In this year, our big shift is towards capturing the investment which Europeana Foundation does to support the work of the network through its staff members. And this appears in the budget 2023 as a third column, which is quite substantial. You can see that the investment there is really bigger compared to what is directly invested in the networking activities. We are looking after the budget line around membership. So if you are in a situation you don't have travel funds to come to the conference, you will be able to apply for support. We removed the task forces line, and you see between our budget in the first column for 2023 and the Europeana Foundation budget, additional column which has 25,000 in it for developing training activities and capacity building. This is within the context of the new tender. Part of it will support activities which are related to our network, but basically this is a budget for the benefit of the whole Europeana initiative. What we want to make sure is that we will be observing how much of it will come and support activities relevant to our network association. Next slide, please. So if I have to summarize the current situation, basically we are presenting this year's budget in a different way. This was already mentioned by Rob. We have almost €500,000 if we put together what goes to the network and what is spent by Europeana Foundation for staff supporting the network. And this is about 7% of the overall budget of the Europeana initiative under the new contract. So that's quite substantial. If we split it among our members, this means that there is about €132 for the network activities invested in our network, which is an interesting amount to think over. A substantial proportion in this is the support of Europeana Foundation staff. The underspent funds, we have an agreement with the foundation to get them back into our budget, but we will change how they will be spent. Before they were going back to the line or the community which didn't spend the funds. Now we will look at them and will appoint them as a management board according to requests, because we can see that the work of the communities is quite diverse and their needs are also not necessarily equal. We have a new line for training activities and capacity building, and we will be working jointly with the other bodies from the Europeana initiative to make sure that capacity building arrives in the shape and form which is best suited for our network. So that's all from me.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Milena. One point on Milena's slide, which you did not mention, but I think is very important, is that the voluntary contributions of the network, which sustain the network, are not actually quantified or represented yet in this expanded model of how we express our budget. And we need to think about how we might be able to do that, because it's quite important to recognise the fact that the network runs on voluntary work. And if we can quantify that, I think we should. Thanks, Milena.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, now we switch with 10 minutes, 9 minutes to go to the approval of the form of these documents, or otherwise voting on it. And Fred is going to run this show, Fred.
Yes, so thank you very much, everyone, for sticking with us and for listening so intently to these papers. What we're inviting you now to do is provide a provisional vote on whether you are satisfied with and happy to approve the papers and budgets that we've just discussed. So this is done by a Mentimeter. So if you go to menti.com and use the code 72296865, or if you scan the QR code on the screen, you will be able to cast your provisional vote. So this is just a provisional vote, as I've said. This is about demonstrating a sort of show of hands in the room, which we'll be able to see in a minute as that's going. But you will all be invited, as the entire membership will be invited, to cast your formal vote via an email that's going out now. So whilst you're very helpfully providing a provisional vote now, it's very important that you cast your actual vote when you get your email later. So the entire membership will be invited to vote, and obviously most of the membership is not present at the moment. So in a second, we should be able to see the provisional vote coming in to give us an indication of, from those who are in the room, whether you are happy. So yes, if you want to cast your provisional vote now, and whether you're happy with any of these papers, or if you're not, you're obviously welcome to say that you do not approve. And if you prefer to abstain for any reason, you can also do that. So we're getting a strong turnout for yes so far. It's an abstention. So there's about 104 of us here. It looks like we've got about 44 votes so far. So I wonder if anyone. Yeah, that's fine. It's a bit slow to load. I appreciate. Yes, it requires another device or a user get devices out, and obviously the votes to come through. So give it another minute or so, but obviously it's fairly clear so far and following historic trends. Always worth stressing you're not obliged to agree. Okay. I think once we've got about 50 votes. So I wonder if we want to go back to the slides, if possible, to just wrap up.
No, we need the next
one.
one now.
Oh, sorry.
We just had so far
Sorry,
the
yes.
minutes. Now we have the report.
Sorry, I didn't realize we could go to each one in turn. So yeah, if we try and get up to about 50 on this one. High level of obsession. All right, yep. So the activity plan. I know. And finally, financial report 2021. Cool. And the provisional budget for 2023. All right. So thank you very much for casting your provisional votes. So just to recap what I've said, thank you. That was a provisional vote. You will get an email imminently, which has the link to actually vote in the formal vote. So please do ensure that you actually cast your proper votes. And obviously we'll ask all others to cast their votes as well. And it will be open until the 10th of November. So you've got a short voting window now to vote. I'll also draw your attention to the post-event survey that you'll be asked to fill in. Please do take the time to fill that in. That really helps us deliver the sort of most productive and exciting events for you. And finally, I wanted to say that it was great to see the provisional votes coming in there. I noticed that there was a few abstentions coming in, which is great. You're very welcome to do that, and that's very good. If there's any thoughts that you've got, if there are reasons, questions, comments, or concerns about any of those documents that you want, either please just drop a line in the chat, drop us a line at any time, whatever it is, and you want to ask or raise some questions or concerns. Is it just that you haven't had a chance to read the documents and you want to save your vote, whatever it might be? But if there's anything that we can help you with that is more substantial to help with that, please always drop us a line. So it's good to see that's available for you. I don't think we necessarily have anything else to say today.
That's it.
So that's us from us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for joining us. And I wish everyone a fantastic day.